Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan. As promised, we are getting closer to free agency, and we wanted to really go through not who the Eagles are going to lose. We've talked a lot about who they might lose and all the transactions they've already made, but we did want to give a landscape look, Adam, right, at where the Eagles might bargain shop because they're so good at doing that. You know they're going to have some holes to fill. They expect to have some holes to fill. So we're going to go through some of the positions on offense in this podcast that we could see the Eagles, bargain shopping or looking to bring in to patch up the holes that they're expected to have. So why don't we get started right away and talk about the running back position? Now, obviously, in our last pod, we talked about the fortifying of it by giving Saquon Barkley an extension, making him the highest paid running back in the NFL. We've talked about Will Shipley entering year 2, but obviously Kenneth Gainwell, his situation cloudy right now because he stands to become a free agent when the new league year begins. And as you've pointed out, not necessarily an easy guy to replace, Adam, because he's very good in pass protection, and he is someone that the Eagles have relied upon in 2-minute, 4-minute, and on third down.
Yeah, what's interesting is, so with Gainwell, he had such a high trust of the coaches. It's interesting for a guy to be a third-day pick to earn the trust like he has. That will not be easy to replace. Now, I checked in with some coaches who've worked with some of the players on this list, and personnel people who've worked with these guys. We're about to give that list who fit the list. The veteran list that we have here are guys who have been third down backs in their past, or can block at least a little bit, can handle short yardage. So it's not a long list, but there's a reason why these guys are free agents. Some have had injury history, some are older, but there's one guy at the end of the list I really like who was just miscast as starting running back. We'll get to him later, but when we look at this list here, there's a guy. This guy did a really good job for the Commandos this year. Jeremy McNichols, who came out of Boise State, and I think it's 17, if you might remember, super fast, just under 5'9", and they became just kind of like Gainwell in a different way. He became a good third down back. I talked to a coach who worked with him over the years, said he was one of the best pass protecting backs he's ever coached. It's like, wow, okay, he's going on my list then. So McNichols, we'll see. He's been on, I think, 10 teams, a couple of them twice. So clearly, I get it. He's been on a lot of teams, but coaches and clubs like him enough to keep bringing him back. And the guy can block. And he also had some short yardage carries this year, and he scored some on short yardage. So he's just not explosive like he used to be.
Right. It's almost seemed like the Commanders or Commandos brought him in to just in case, because Eckler they signed, and Eckler's a guy who can catch passes, has a little wiggle to him, decent in pass pro. So it almost like they brought in McNichols because they were worried about, what if Eckler breaks down, because he broken down in the past, and he wound up having a concussion issue, and McNichols wound up playing. And then even when Eckler came back at him, you did see McNichols still have a small part of a role in the offense. So that to me was an indication that they just really liked what they saw and wanted to get him on the field at certain times.
Yeah, did a really good job. The second guy on our list is a guy you brought up to me, Samaje Perine, who's been a third down back for a lot of his career. I think what happens sometimes is, a team will draft a guy the Bengals did for a specific reason. He early in his career he could have started a little bit, but he was competing with Joe Mixon for playing time, and he kind of morphed into a third down back. So he's out there. He just played for the Chiefs. He could certainly handle short yardage if you need him to, but he's a third down back, pass protection, really no juice. He's just a decent third down back. Now, the next guy, I think he started his career as an Eagle, if I'm not mistaken, with Chip Kelly in 2015. That's the venerable Raheem Mosher, all-time great guy, who he really fell off this past season. I don't know how much he has left. He certainly could handle third downs. He was one of the best special teams coverage players in the National Football League. Why? One of the fastest running backs in the National Football League, but he's had so many injuries. I don't know what he has left, but he could be a third down back. And if he's around, I think, 32 years old, he was one of these guys who late in his career, he became a starter, came out of nowhere. Like no one would play him other than on special teams. And he's 32 years old now.
Mhm.
But you know what? If he's got something left, he turns 33 in April. But by now running backs are almost usually done. But again, he came out of nowhere in like year 8 or year 9 to be a quality back. So we'll see if he's got anything left, but he's out there.
So, Raheem Mostert, he's interesting. You're right. Chip Kelly brought him in to the Eagles as, I believe, an undrafted free agent.
Yep, out of Purdue.
And I remember, I believe the Eagles were playing the Colts in a preseason game that year, and I was catching up with Ryan Grigson. I think it was the Colts because I think Ryan might have been GM at the time. And Griggs and I were just catching up, and we were talking about Mostert. And I remember Griggs saying, you know what, we really liked him too. We even liked him at cornerback, right? Because
really?
At one point in his career, maybe in college or high school, he was a corner, and he had speed. I mean, he could run. I mean, that's the one thing about Raheem Mostert. And do remember, Ryan Grigson went to the same college.
That's right.
As Raheem Mostert. They're
6th round pick. I think if I'm not mistaken, he was drafted ahead of Brady. I think because I believe in the whatever they call it, the Brady 6 or 7, whatever the hell they called it, on the 30 for 30 or whatever the special, because they showed Ryan holding that the Joe Bucksbaum book, the late Joe Bucksbaum, about he had a scouting report on him, and Ryan actually agreed with the scouting report. You're not a great athlete.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that just shows you. I think I'd be reluctant because of A, his injury history. B, boy, I mean, honestly, you could see Howie thinking about the potential of just adding Mostert to this high octane offense and what he could do with that speed.
Oh, if he has anything left.
Yeah, but what you really need is someone who I would think who's durable, who can, like you said, pass protect. We know that Mostert can catch the ball well and run, but I think you need a little bit more from that, because you're banking on Shipley to sort of give you that
exactly
as a backup.
Oh, one thing I'll mention, and this is just ridiculous. Just 2 seasons ago, he had 21 combined touchdowns, 18 rushing, 3 receiving, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
Hit his only 1,000-yard season. He was magnificent. And this past season, he just lost it. How bad was it? 3.3 yards per carry. I mean,
plus I'm not sure he's even a great scheme fit with his running style. He's an east-west outside zone guy.
Toss it,
perfect for the Shanahan Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly. That's
the Eagles are inside zone, pounded in the middle. I'd rather have listen, I get that he's got a ton of lightning when he's healthy, but I think you got Barkley. you need a little bit more of a steady presence and an inside runner.
I mean, he only had 2 carries his first 2 seasons. He did not become a starter more or less until 2020. So 6th year he became a starter. And who the hell knows why? I mean, I don't know what Kyle Shanahan saw, other than he was unbelievably explosive, but good for him to do it. Good for Raheem to he did something that doesn't happen. It could happen at quarterback like Kurt Warner, but it doesn't happen at running back, but it did. So there's Raheem. Now, Jamal Williams is cut on Tuesday, which is no surprise. Here's what he can do. Short yardage, unbelievably physical, really smart football player who scored a boatload of rushing touchdowns a couple years ago with Detroit. He tried to capitalize that with a really nice free agency with New Orleans, and it just never did it. He could play. He's physical. He could play a 3rd down if you want him to. He could catch it, but no juice at all. He's another guy you just wonder what he's got left here.
Yeah, you're right. I like him more than, say, Mostert, because he will pound the ball up middle. He will give you that pass pro. He is a big body, but I'm with you. I'm not signing him unless it's like late May, and he's still looking for a job. Like, I'm not rushing to go sign Jamal Williams as my backup running back.
I hear you. Now, this next guy stunned me. In fact, he more or less became he didn't start. He would come in very early, and Kareem Hunt really took over for Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco did not look good come back from his broken leg. A personnel guy told me he was stunned because he did his free agent work. He goes, wow, Hunt could still play. I was like, do you think he could play on 30? He goes, yeah, he's not a great pass blocker. He was okay. But he said he caught the ball well. He had juice left in his legs. I was like, wow, okay. Hey, guy could still play.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by how much he gave the Chiefs when he was there.
Good.
I thought it was more
I
like
have a
being a
clue.
Chief than him, but he did pretty well, and he got the first carries in the Super Bowl too before they gave it to Pacheco, which was interesting. So he generally keeps himself pretty strong in shape. Not a bad one. Definitely not a bad one. I like your next one better though, because
One thing though, I would say be careful when you see a guy's yards per carry. That includes short yardage. So when a guy, you'd want a running back to average at least 4.2 yards per carry.
yes,
He only averaged 3.6, but remember that also includes short yardage. So just be careful.
especially if that's a big part of their role and they have more than others.
Right. Just I'd have to see non-short yards what his average was. I'm sure it was higher. He did average 7.7 yards per catch on 23 receptions. But this guy, a coach that worked with him, told me he's just one of the smartest football players I've ever worked with. That's Alexander Madison, who was completely miscast with the Vikings to be their starting running back.
Mm-hmm.
Signed a modest deal with the Vikings to be their starter. He just was miscast. He's a really good two. And I'm told pass pro is really good. ID's pass rusher is really smart. This one I would sign off on.
I'm with you. This is, of all the names, I like it the most, but since we both like it, it makes me think that he might get one of those 1B type deals or committee type deals. The Eagles are not interested in the committee. They just want to back up to Saquon Barkley. I feel like Madison, a smart team that does like to run the ball, maybe like the Steelers or the Ravens, I don't know, the Chargers should look at Madison and say, this guy could probably still be a part of our committee. He's pretty he's
last
not
year
old, right? I mean, he's still fairly
No, he's young. No, but I'm just looking at his contract. Last year he signed a 1-year deal worth $2 million. That to me is what he is. He came off not a great season.
Mm-hmm.
He's got really good size. Another Boise State running back.
Right.
He is now, let's see, 27 in June. But he's a physical back. He's not explosive. You got to understand what the guy is and isn't. Mm-hmm. See, to me, and you mentioned earlier, and we talked about this with Gainwell, but Barkley played every game other than the game that they rested him. Obviously, he didn't miss a game due to injury. But my thinking going forward would be if Gainwell doesn't come back, or if he comes back, Gainwell, if Barkley couldn't play, Gainwell's the power back, the guy to run in between the tackles, short yardage, and Shipley's a changeup, the juice back.
Yep.
So in this scenario, if Gainwell didn't come back, Madison's the physical back, third down back, short yardage, and again, Shipley's the juice back. You can Jimmy rig it. You can make it work. There's no question about it with Shipley's juice.
Absolutely. All right, so those are about 5 or 6 good options there. There's always going to be a plethora of backup running backs that you can bring in to do the job. Some won't be as reliable as others, and I agree with you. Gainwell, by the way, there's a chance Gainwell could come back. We'll have to see how the market is. I think the preference would be to have Kenny Gainwell back, but those are some names in case he is not. Let's move on to tight end because we're in a similar situation as far as what the Eagles are looking for, Adam, and that's, regardless of Dallas Goedert and his status, and we've talked about that, they're going to need somebody who can block because they were looking for it last year. They tried to make it CJ Uzomah. It didn't really pan out. I mean, he was on the roster, off the roster, didn't have that many, good moments for the team, but they're going to have to find that.
All right, let's go through these, but I got one I absolutely love.
Okay.
And I'll explain it in a couple minutes here. So John Bates is a wide tight end.
Mm-hmm.
But he can catch. He's not a great athlete, but he's not bad. Is he where did he go? He's
like Brent Selleck light to you? Like, he can run, he can catch, block.
I like that. Yeah. He went to, he's another Boise. I knew it. I know he's another Boise guy. What is going on with these Boise guys?
You got to get Quentin Michael up in here soon and
get I know, man. Q's got to love this. Now, this next guy, I know the Eagles liked many, many years ago. I don't remember if they were in the bidding to sign him as an undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
But Mo Alley Cox is the guy who's been with the Colts forever. He's a wide tight end. In fact, when he scores, it's usually because nobody's covering him. I remember a couple times I saw him. He just stood there. Nobody covered him in the end zone.
That helps.
Yeah, he was a basketball player, if I recall correctly, at I got to check the school here.
He was. Oh, where was it?
Is it a VCU? Yes, VCU is a basketball player. Yeah. Boy, he's 31. Where the hell's the time gone?
Well, I remember that we've been talking about this guy's emergence for 5 years, but he's battled some injuries, if I'm not mistaken. And they've obviously had a different quarterback every year and a half to 2 years there, so it's been difficult.
But he's more of a wide tight end. So now this next guy,
I like this guy, Adam.
This guy, it never worked for him, but I'm telling you, he's better than he showed with the Panthers. That's Tommy Tremble.
Yeah,
who was he was arguably the best blocking tight end to come out for his draft 5 years ago.
What Greg Cosell said about him coming out of Notre Dame?
What did he say? What did he call
on our show? Our Intel Greg, he said he'll melt your face mask off.
Wow, did he really say that? There you go. I'll pair him up with a draftee, an athletic tight end. Okay, and I was told by Panther source that he's more athletic than you think. He was kind of pigeonholed when we drafted him. Look at my notes here. It just never kind of worked the way they thought it was when they drafted him. But that front office is long gone, and so is that coaching staff. So, in fact, that might have been he might have had 3 coaching staffs by the time he was done there in Carolina. I lost count. The next guy is Durham Smythe, who's a wide tight end. He's an inline blocker. The Dolphins. He was making way too much money to be a blocking tight end. He's out there. My favorite name on the list. I remember talking to Charlie Weiss about him.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if the Eagles sign him, I doubt it. But if they sign this guy, I'm going to talk about. We'll get Charlie on. Harrison Bryant, the former draftee out of, I think, Florida Atlantic. I think his son might have coached him at Florida Atlantic. But this guy was very talented. The Raiders signed him to be their backup tight end. Then, of course, they didn't know at the time they were going to draft the kid from Georgia, Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers, yeah.
So he was kind of lost in the sauce, lost in the shuffle. He just didn't have a chance. This guy, he could run after the catch. He can block. He's a good tight end. He would be an excellent number 2. This would be a great signing for them. To me, I'm going to look up his contract right now. I should have that.
It's funny because as you look at that, people have already hit us up about questions, not about him, but the other Raiders tight end who was drafted much higher, who's probably not going to factor into there. Well, he should factor in, but maybe Michael Mayer.
Michael Mayer, yeah, but again, he was a second rounder. He's a good player, but see, I wouldn't trade for him.
I wouldn't either. If you're the Raiders, you have no wide receivers. Yeah. Why not try to play some 12 personnel?
Oh, no, wait. You hang on. You know what's coming. Chips. They're going to run the hell out of it.
That's right. So Kelly loves tight ends. Yeah.
They'll do a ton of 12. And Pete Carroll's there. He's the king of 12 personnel. That's another story for another time. So Harrison Bryant made last year on a 1-year deal $3.25 million. That's a lot. That's a little rich for me. Wow. But you know what? He didn't do it. He doesn't have leverage anymore because he didn't do much. It wasn't his fault. He just got usurped. Brock Bowers, Mayer didn't do much, but I do like this kid could play. Now the next guy is I have to check if Chris Manhertz did he play? I don't even know if he played college football. I remember hearing Sean Payton talk about how they discovered him. With the Saints,
right?
Exact. Good call. Yes, I don't know if he played football there or not. Sean Payton talked about it one time, how they found him. Yes, let me see.
I didn't even realize Canisius had a football team.
I know because I love from hoops, but yeah, he didn't. He played basketball.
It doesn't have a football team.
Yeah, he played high school football, I think, and not college football. But anyway, he was one of the best blocking tight ends in the National Football League for many years. He made a lot of money from just being a wide tight end.
Yeah.
The next guy was fairly athletic when they drafted him, but he's kind of like, do you remember Daniel Graham? Not that Jeff Swaim is anywhere as talented as Daniel Graham was a first rounder for was it Denver maybe? Or no, New England. I'm sorry, New England.
Yeah, New England.
Dan Graham became a strictly a blocker over a number of years and maybe the NFL's best blocking tight end. Jeff Swaim was a guy could catch the ball early in his career, but he's been with a number of teams. I don't know if he still wants to play, but he's a wide tight end. And then finally, this guy was severely overdrafted by the Packers, Josiah DeGuara, who signed a free agent deal with the Jaguars. He's just a blocker. So all these guys are blockers, but I love Harrison Bryant, man. I that's a guy that we'll look into. We'll see if the Eagles are on him at all, but It's not a bad list for guys who can block, though.
Yeah, no, I would probably have Bryant and Tremble at the top of my list. I'm not mad at Bates. I think he actually can get the job done.
Yeah,
he's sort of like what you had in Jack Stoll. I mean,
Jack Stoll. Sorry, he's also out there. This is a major buyer's market. You listen. You don't like last year was terrible for free agency. This is a pretty good free agent list for what the Eagles need.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Adam, I know Eagles fans don't want the Eagles to do any reaching, right, in free agency, but that's a good time to talk about our friends at Stretch Zone. Just got my stretch again this week. I felt great. It was a post-run stretch. So that's different because sometimes I get the pre-run stretch. I enjoyed the benefits of a post-run stretch, and I'm just excited about going back more each week.
Nice. So we should let folks know this is breaking news. They just announced that they're opening in Warrington, PA, which is up 309. It's funny. They like Route 611 and 309, our friends at Stretch Zone in Montgomery County. So that's not too far from the Montgomery Mall, if it's still there. I don't know if Montgomery Mall is still there, but all these malls are closing. Like the Exton Mall is going to close. So yeah, and just understand, like Geoff was talking about, because you had not gotten stretched in a long time, right?
The last 2 weeks, but before that, I went through the holidays and through January through the Super Bowl run. Didn't get it. I may have gotten one in for about 6 weeks there.
So here's what we don't talk about this much, but I want people to understand the benefits. Your range of motion. So if you do, it doesn't have to be racket sports or sports in general. If you're a teacher, if you're working retail, if you're standing up all the time, you have better range of motion. If you do, obviously, if you're like Geoff and I, we do racket sports, or anyone who does pickleball, you're gonna have much better range of motion. And you know this, and I know this. I know my wife goes to Stretch, and anyone who does it, you get a burst of energy when I get out of there. Although I'm a little sore, you're gonna be sore because they're opening up your muscles. But the burst of energy that you get when you open up muscles and you get rid of that stiffness, it helps you sleep better. Your muscles relax better. You feel lighter. And the big one for me, and I can't speak for you, but the reduction in stress that I get, I cannot tell you when. It's cool that everyone likes to talk Eagles at Stretch Zone. It's actually we all do. And Hassan and Exton is a big Seahawk fan. We were talking about the Seahawks earlier this week, but we all talk sports there. But the big thing is you get a reduction in stress. So 12 locations. Go to stretchzone.com. It's free, by the way. There's no obligation. You sign up for your free 30-minute stretch. Go to one of the locations in PA, New Jersey. And another thing they added, once you become a member, this is the first time in the history of the company they're doing this. If you're traveling and you're a member, you could use one of your stretches. If you're in California, you could use one of them there. You couldn't do that before because they're mostly franchisees, but now they have a new deal because they know when we travel, sometimes you want to get stretched. You know that, and I know that. Yep. So now you can do that as well.
All right, real quick, let's go through those 12 locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Haverford so Chester County Main Line, Haverford near Suburban Square, Devon near the Whole Foods, Exton and Wetland Town Center, South Philly near Graduate Hospital on 25th and Washington Ave, Montgomery County, Elkins Park Plaza, where I grew up, Upper Dublin in the Promenade at Upper Dublin off 611, Feasterville, Lower Southampton Village, opening in April. Oh, it's April, by the way, in Warrington.
Nice.
Hopefully King of Prussia. The rumors about King of Prussia, hopefully that. Near you in Cherry Hill and Evesham Road, Mount Laurel. We're going to get Cosell near Centerton Square near Wegmans. I know that one real well. Franklin Lakes and Franklin Ave, Northfield, and Tilton Road, Princeton Nassau Park Pavilion. Go to stretchzone.com, sign up for it, just like we did, and we feel great.
All right, let us continue talking about Eagles free agent potential shopping here. Let's get into the offensive line, Adam. And Mekhi Becton is obviously the big name that could be flying the coop. And so the Eagles, even if Tyler Steen can win that job, they're going to want someone to compete with him. They're going to want depth. We talked about this in a recent pod. They didn't have the greatest depth. They just, fortunately for them, didn't need it. But some of the guys they thought were going to be, whether it was Matt Hennessy or Gates or who's the guy that played for the Bengals and the Texans? He was in the playoffs. We were like, hey, this guy can play a little bit.
Max
Sharping.
You got it. Sharping.
Yeah. None of that really worked out for the Eagles, but luckily for them, they didn't need it. So that's not always the case. So let's go through some guards, some interior offensive linemen that would be of interest to them.
this first guy is a former Eagle, and no one in the National Football League thought this guy would ever last. I've talked to so many NFL people about this guy because he came out of nowhere. The Eagles traded him, Ryan Bates, to the Bills. Well, I don't know what didn't they get someone who played in the league for a bit, then he didn't make the Eagles.
They got like a bag of footballs when they traded him. I can't remember who they.
Well, no, but it was out of Penn State. He was undrafted free agent. He showed nothing here,
right?
And he actually not only did he do well for the Bills, he got a restricted free agent deal, and there were a number of teams in on it. The Bears wound up winning that sweepstakes, and Bates could play guard or center, so he's got some value. Aaron Stinney, who won a Super Bowl with the Bucs, I believe. He's with the Giants. He was a free agent with the Giants. He's just a guard, but he can play. Shane Lemieux, who played for the Giants, he could play center or guard. He was with the Saints this past season. And another Eagle, I'll tell you what, this guy shocked me. He didn't do anything for the Eagles. It didn't look like he'd ever make it. Matt Pryor, if you saw this guy, there's like no way he could play guard. Well, the guy could play guard or right tackle. He's also played left tackle.
Yeah.
He did a good job for the Bears, I think, this past season.
Don't forget how much Stoughton loves to bring back his protege. You know,
his guys,
Driscoll, he's done it with
Yep.
There's another guy I can't think of right now, but yeah, he's lost a lot of guys, but he brings them back when he can.
Yep. Danny Pinter, who's a backup guard for the Colts, is out there. Dan Brunskill, who started some games. He's a guard. He was drafted by the 49ers. He played with the Titans this past season. Now, Mark Lewinsky, he's a veteran who's only a guard who's started mostly his career with the Colts. He went to the Giants, didn't work out, started there, and then he went back to the Colts. And then this guy played at University of Pennsylvania. This guy's got to be in his mid-30s. I give Greg Van Roten credit. Yeah, it's Van Roten, not Van Roten. Van Roten. I give this guy credit. No one thought he'd ever make it. The scouts I talked to couldn't stand the player. As a player, not personally. As a player, they thought he was stiff, couldn't play.
Right.
This guy, look, you're not always getting him right in scouting. This guy is defied logic. He's done a great job. And I give him credit. And Dan Feeney's out there. He's a guard who could play center. He's been with a number of teams. Sam Mustipher is a guard. I remember him from the Bears, who was with the Chargers this past season. Now, this guy's a former first-round pick we're going to give you. He's a guard, right tackle, Jermaine Ifedi. He's probably getting near the end of his career, but you know what? He could play inside. He could play multiple positions. Wes Schweitzer, who's a guard who could play center. David Quesenberry's been in the league for a long time. Who's a guard who was with the Vikings last season. So buyer's market at guard. Some of these guys, again, could play center.
I feel like the Lemieux kid, Shane Lemieux, I mean, he's not a kid anymore, but he's, finally out of the Giants system. He signed that 1-year deal with the Saints. He's got guard center capability, and I feel like that is what the Eagles would typically want to look for anyway, because they're going to need a backup center. It didn't work out with Hennessy. It didn't work out with Nick Gates. I have a feeling they want to sign someone who's not really young, but not really old either. And a lot of those guys you mentioned have been around the league for 7, 8, 9 years. I could see them looking for a 4 to 5 to 6 year vet who's got guard center swing capability.
That's the key. Because and the Eagles rarely will sign a guy who can only play one position. I said rarely. I didn't say it's never happened, but rarely. They're big on the multiple positions, and the Eagles aren't the only team. Most teams do that. You don't draft. It's very hard to draft a guard now that can't play center. It's just or vice versa. You want that at least that capability. Landon Dickerson, by the way, could do it. I know Andrew Jacheco said that Keegan might in his background might be able to do it. It's particularly, by the way, later in the draft. It's hard to draft a guy who could just play one position on the interior. So we'll see what happens. And lastly, boy, again, it's a buyer's market at tackle. There are a ton of them.
Yeah, and of course, the Eagles have people forgot about LaRaven Clark. I guess he was on injured reserve practice squad almost all year long.
Since like May, May he was out.
Yeah. So he'll probably not be back. Fred Johnson and Jack Driscoll also free agents. So that they're going to look at some type of offensive tackle if they can't bring Fred back or Driscoll doesn't come back. They'll be looking.
Driscoll had an injury. He got hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, this guy just got cut. Man, I've covered this guy. George Fant was a discovery. I got to give the Seahawks credit. He was another basketball player. I don't know if Fant played in high school. I think he went to I'm going to say Western Kentucky. Yes, he was
Mhm.
a Hilltopper. Yeah, he played basketball and football, but he was undrafted. This is he made a ton of money. He's unfortunately been hurt a lot. He turns 33 in July. He could play right and left tackle. The next guy is another guy's hung in there.
Yep.
Kendall Lamb, who could play right or left tackle. He was with the Dolphins. Fant, the Seahawks again cut him. James Hudson has been in the league for a little bit. He could play right or left tackle. He's more of a right tackle, I'm told.
Didn't he start the first few games at right tackle while they had injuries to the Browns had both of their offensive
Yes. Oh, they were a mess. You're absolutely right.
Hudson. I remember we were watching some tape just preparing for the Eagles game, and I thought he had some again, you can go back and watch Fred Johnson snaps in the Bengals, and you could say on some snaps, man, this guy doesn't look good, but he's big, he was strong. The Eagles were able to work around him. I felt like Hudson is a guy that as a backup can give you some good, especially if you put him under Stoutland for a little bit, you might get something there.
Yep. Jalen Moore, who's a left tackle who filled in for Trent Williams. So he's certainly got some upside, but it's hard to sign guys like this who are backups that can't play both positions. I'm going to look into it and see if he can play right tackle. The next guy I know could play both because I've talked to people who work with him. Cornelius Lucas, he's a big dude. He's got to be around 6'8".
Oh, he's huge.
He's been around a long time. Started games early in his career. He's best as a swing tackle, getting up there well into his 30s. Trent Scott, who started against the Eagles in the playoffs. He's a right tackle guard who could play left tackle. So he's got some positional versatility. Justin School, who's been with the 49ers and a couple other teams. Now, the next guy we're going to talk about has started a number of games. He's a right tackle, left tackle. Chris Hubbard, who has been with the Browns and with the Giants among teams he's been with. He could play right or left tackle. This guy I love. Kelvin Beacham's I know he's a business guy. I know he's all over LinkedIn. I see him up there. Kelvin's been around the league a long time with the Jets and the Cardinals. He's winding down his career, could play left or right tackle. He's kind of morphed into a right tackle at this point in his career. The next guy, Chuma Edoga, who's a left right tackle, has been with Dallas and the Jets. Larry Bourne's a power tackle. He's a power right tackle, I'm told. He's only a right tackle, drafted by the Bears. Josh Jones is a guy that I saw, I think, at the Senior Bowl, who came out of nowhere at the University of Houston. He was probably overdrafted a little bit. He's a guard right tackle. He's not a left tackle at this point. Dan Skipper, who's the guy who looks about 50. He's about 32 or 33.
That's Detroit Lions' secret weapon.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say you saw him. The controversial play a couple years ago. He's a guard right tackle.
Yeah.
Deante Smith was a guard who didn't make it for the Bengals, who never really quite did as well as they would hope. Matt Pert,
UConn,
who was with Denver this past season, who out of UConn, I think.
Yep.
Who's more of a right tackle. Ole Udo, who's a right tackle guard, who used to be with the Vikings, had a really bad knee injury. He was an up-and-coming guy with the Saints this past season. Brandon Parker, who's been in the league a long time. Not a lot of people know about him. Drafted by the Raiders. He's a right tackle. And you mentioned LaRaven Clark. Calvin Anderson's a backup tackle with the Steelers. Again, guy's been in the league a long time. You might remember from Denver if you really follow the league. And Garon Christian, who was overdrafted by Washington, who's a guard right tackle. So again, it is a buyer's market if you want a tackle.
I got to give you some props, Cap. You found some guys that I can honestly say I've never heard of before.
Now, here's why. I talked to 4 offensive line coaches for this show, and I talked to a couple of personnel guys. So I cross-track. Okay, hey, is this true? You like this guy? No, these guys are not going to agree. As Greg Cosell says, reasonable minds may not think alike sometimes.
Correct.
You may not agree. So this is the offensive line group.
I can't say I've dug into some Ole Udo tape or even knew who he was before you mentioned him.
I actually had to get the pronunciation right.
Yeah. And Justin School, that one came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah, he's
ULE.
Yeah, he started for the Niners. I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a name? Again, I think Lamb and Hudson jump out to me. They're versatile.
We're fan. Yep, we're fan.
Lamb or Hudson. Yeah, those are good ones because they're versatile. They can play multiple positions. They're big guys, big, strong. This is what we know Stoutland likes. He likes big, strong, meaty guys. That is always going to be the recipe.
But they got to have some athleticism. He just want guys can't move,
Oh, of course. I'm just saying that's the template. He'd rather have
guys, dudes who are long. Yeah, he don't like and the late Howard Mudd, man, he wanted athletes, man. He
didn't
lets
care
you
if
know.
they were smaller. As long as they can move and
Yep.
jump step
Yep.
and hop step and what was the junction point was his big thing, which is like if you were a tackle and an edge rusher is trying to get around you, if you could pivot quickly enough, sort of like time your set to get to the junction point where the edge rusher has to round back toward the quarterback, you could help block and it'd be like, oh my God, well, who can do that? How many
Right.
guys
Exactly.
you want Kelsey once told me it's like not Stalin, Mudd was saying, could you almost turn your back to the defender and pivot almost do a 360 type of pirouette to get, and Kelsey could do it because he's a freak, but not too many people can do that.
Well, ask our friend Jamal Jackson about that. When Jamal tells that story when he knew he was done. I guess did Jamal say they didn't even tell him? They just put Kelsey in a spot. He's like, okay, I guess this is it for me. Like something
it was basically like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Wow,
just
man.
Jamal. There was another guy they drafted that same year or brought in an undersized guy, and they told whoever played right guard or
Not
left
Nick
guard.
Cole. Not Nick Cole.
No, Nick Cole was the guy they told along with
The
Jamal, have a break. We're going to put this other guy in.
Oh,
I forget who it was. But,
I got you.
As he was reshaping and remolding the offensive line. But that'll be interesting. We know, listen, this is a big position for the Eagles. Depth is really important. It's a big backbone to their success. So if they can't bring back Fred Johnson, and we'll see what happens with the two guys who are hurt, then, they're going to go bargain shopping here.
Yeah, and understand, folks, it when you're looking for backups, if these guys want not starter money, but if they want, $6 or $7 million a year, they're not coming here. That's just, this
right.
is
Too much of a buyer's market.
Yeah. And on the next show, when you hear that, we're not going to go over every defensive tackle, but it's the biggest, not only is defensive tackle the biggest buyer's market. I've never seen anything like this. Not that they're A-level players, but it is like the best backup list you've ever seen.
Oh, can't wait to get into it. Yeah. We will do that next. That will do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.